Hello, Earthlings, and welcome to the first in a series of 7 Sound Mind episodes where I break down each song that I played at my final recital at Berkeley individually. This episode I'll of course be focusing on the first song, Eugenia. It was written originally as my final homework assignment for the Jazz Composition 1 class, and then later arranged for the Jazz Comp 2 midterm. The first part of this song that came to mind was the title, which is proof that inspiration can come from really weird places, if it has to. The name Eugenia came from a literature class I had taken in the spring of 2014, where we read an early dystopian novel called We by Yevgeny Zamyatin, and the teacher said that Yevgeny was the Russian form of Eugene. And a little while later I remembered that, and I thought that Eugenia might be a good name for a song. Women's names generally are. So in the spring of 2015, that's when I was taking Jazz Comp 1, a class focused on writing tunes, and our final assignment was to write a through-composed tune. The defining characteristic of through composition is that no section is repeated. However, regardless of what form you're working in, whether it's through-composed or AABA or verse-chorus or whatever, you can always develop the hell out of your motives. A motive being a small group of notes. Those of you who have seen the video, link in the description and on the end screen if you haven't. Those of you who have already heard the song know that the main motive is this, which of course comes from the sound of the word Eugenia, the prosody of the word Eugenia. Eugenia! When I first showed the seeds of this song to Scott Free, my Jazz Composition 1 teacher, I had worked out this minor development of the motive. Yes, those dissonances are intentional. As you'll see in next Friday's video, I really like Thelonious Monk and his penchant for dissonance. The other seed was something that had been kicking around my head months before. Which I had saved for near the end. I hadn't quite worked out the rhythm of it though. To connect the two, I tried to sing something to myself that felt natural following that first seed. And with its slight development, where instead of I went another nice crunchy dissonance in that last chord again, when it clashes with the melody. I was going through a prog head phase at the time, and I had become interested in this concept of a prog ballad, which in my mind was like a power ballad, but with more musical kinks or sophistications. Two songs I was keeping in mind as I was writing Eugenia were Think of Me with Kindness by Gentle Giant and The Slow Crash Landing Man by Spock's Beard. Both prog ballads, both really different. So as I said, I tried to sing something that could naturally follow the first 2 lines I had written, and what came out was something like this wandering line, which is a nice contrast to what came before. It goes up instead of down before climbing even higher. And then the prog head in me said, why not see if this bit sounds more natural in 7/8 than 4/4? Turns out it did. Now all I had to do was come up with some chords to go under it. And I looked at it, and it seemed to move from D minor to A major. Wait a minute. This is A flat major now. It kind of pulls a sleight of hand on you. No sooner does it land in A than it moves down to A flat, just a half step below. So naturally, the chord progression I came up with pulls its own sleight of hand, in a way. We land on A using your standard 2-5-1. It's the way every jazz musician likes to get to a chord. And then we get a flurry of chords leading to A flat. But I didn't want to do what I just did there, which is just another 2-5-1, lest I get trapped in an endless loop or something. stop! Ah! So what I ended up doing was, I did go to the 2 of A flat to tune the listener's ears to the key, or something like that. But instead of going to the dominant to the 1, I went to the dominant of 4, a dominant chord that resolves to the 4, because I didn't want to get to the 1 too soon, because that would just trigger that endless loop I got caught in just now. And then we sink down into the 1. From here I stuck to a fairly conventional chord progression that you hear in a lot of ballads. And then I put the opening line over it, well, the same shape, but it sounds kind of different in a major key. And from there, it wasn't long until I could get that second seed in that I played at the beginning, the one that had been kicking around long before I came up with the idea for the song. And then to end it, I used an easy trick for writing cool sounding chord progressions, which is to just move the bass note in half steps. So I just went... So I moved it down there, and then I moved it back up, but this time I tried keeping the melody note the same when I moved it up. And then I thought that's kind of boring if the melody just stays on that one note. What if it goes up, but in wider intervals than the bass? And that's pretty much how I wrote the melody. Because I'm not the most lyrically oriented person, I certainly wasn't at the time. I wrote most of the lyrics after completing the music. One lyric I did get before the whole song was complete was the opening line, "Eugenia stares at the blank wall," which gave me the impression that Eugenia might be a shy girl. The lyrics were fairly stream of consciousness, although I knew whenever I got to that opening motive, the word would be Eugenia. No matter where it was, the word would be Eugenia. Eugenia, 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 Eugenia. Whenever you got that shape, the word would be Eugenia. And other than that, I just wanted the lyrics to be not too vague, but also singable, which is the minimum any singer could ask of a lyricist. And as I wrote them, I learned a lot about who Eugenia was, because I didn't think too hard about writing the lyrics while I was writing them, although having stepped back and actually sung them, I've seen maybe slightly more depth to them than I did when I was writing them. When I wrote the line, "You know I want you," I realized I was writing a love song about two introverts finding each other. When I wrote the second verse, I was basically trying to mirror the respective parts of the first verse. That's how the glow-in-the-dark scar came. It didn't come from drugs. It's like, Eugenia has a scar she's ashamed of, that's why she only comes out at night, but what about the boy? He's got a scar he can't hide, no matter if it's day or night. The lyrics seem to be a metaphor for embracing your flaws and making them your thing, and that will actually make you more attractive to people. And then in the fall of 2015, I took Jazz Composition 2, again with Scott Free, and our first assignment was the midterm project, which was to arrange the last tune we wrote for Jazz Comp 1. In my case, it was, of course, Eugenia. I put the first verse at the beginning and the second verse at the end with a long instrumental passage between. For the two verses, I kept the arrangement fairly conventional, but between them I was exploring a potential I had suddenly realized I had to switch from one style to another, seemingly at the drop of a hat. Something I picked up on from listening to Gentle Giant. Their music is filled with unexpected twists and turns. So at the end of the first verse I thought, you know what, this has been a slow rock ballad. Let's do a complete 180 and go to a fast samba for the guitar solo, and not even go through the chord changes, just stay on that D pedal. Then when the solo had run its course, I felt the time was right to do another massive switch and go into a fugue, inspired by another Gentle Giant song, on reflection. The fugue I wrote actually does follow the chord changes of the song this time. Eventually, when all the horns had come in, it morphed into a funk thing, which seemed the perfect opportunity to put in a drum solo, and then I repeated that particular section with the drum solo bits, so the drummer could have as much fun as possible. And then it was a simple matter of having the piano come in to restate the end of the melody, which is already kind of a cooling down section, bringing us back into the opening groove in time for the second verse. And then in 2016, when I did my directed study with Ein Inserto, she helped me kind of unboring some of the horn parts onto the second verse. There were too many whole notes. They were just holding things out after having had so much fun playing the fugue and the other melodic bits I had written for them in the funk section. And of course the guys in the video played it beautifully. It is the first of quite a few Joe Sprunt guitar solos you will be hearing throughout the course of this series. I'll be uploading each song on a Wednesday throughout the next 2 months, and then doing one of these videos every Friday, where I talk about my process writing the song. So subscribe so you don't miss that, especially if you've liked my Facebook page but you're not subscribed here. And I will see you next Friday. So until then, Gafaba.